3 days ago I buried my husband after a heart attack took him from me. Today his mother Dottie changed the locks on our farm, the place we poured our hearts into every acre soaked with our sweat. My key doesn't work. She stood at the gate, smirking, and spat. You're nothing but a gold digger who never belonged here. I'm grieving, gutted, staring at my home like an outsider. The life we built is locked behind that gate, and Dottie wants me gone. If you've been betrayed by family when you were at your lowest, share your story in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Hit subscribe. You won't want to miss how this plays out. Sarah and Matthew met at a Virginia county fair in the summer of 2015. Her booth, lined with sketches of sustainable gardens, caught his eye as he stood nearby selling organic apples from the Bennett family farm. They bonded over a shared love for the land, her vision for eco-friendly landscapes, his dream to revive the farm into a rural retreat. After 2 years of dating, they married under the farm's oldest oak tree, a modest ceremony with close friends and family. Dottie Matthews' mother sat in the front row. Her smile forced her eyes cold. She's too modern for this family, she whispered to Harold, her husband, who nodded without a word. The Bennett farm spanned 100 acres, a patchwork of fields and forests, but it was falling apart when Sarah and Matthew took over. The barns sagged, the orchards were overgrown, and the main house leaked with every rain. They threw everything into it: Sarah's landscape design skills, Matthew's knack for farming, and their combined savings. Sarah put in half of the $60,000 down payment for a renovation loan, a detail Dottie never let slide. In my day, the man provided the home she'd snap at family dinners, her gaze slicing through Sarah. Greg Matthews' older brother showed up rarely, but his resentment was sharp. Must be nice playing farmer with family land, he muttered at a Thanksgiving gathering, ignoring his own failed trucking business propped up by Dottie's checks. Sarah and Matthew worked relentlessly. They built guest cabins with cedar siding, restored a greenhouse for year-round herbs, and turned the front fields into organic orchards. Sarah designed a community market space, its wooden stalls drawing crowds every Saturday. Their efforts paid off. The farm became a local gem. Sarah's designs earning awards, Matthew's produce a staple at nearby restaurants. They tracked every expense, every nail and seed, Sarah storing receipts in a fireproof safe. But Dottie hated the changes. This isn't a Bennett farm anymore, she complained, scoffing at the solar panels and modern cabins. Nancy Gregg's wife stayed silent, always watching Dottie for cues. Patrick Matthews' cousin drifted through, asking for loans. Matthew quietly refused. Family helps family, Patrick would say. But Matthew shook his head, knowing Patrick's history of unpaid debts. The tension boiled over at a community fair the next year. Sarah and Matthew ran a farm booth, handing out cider and flyers for their retreat. Dottie, there with her church group, walked up and loudly remarked, "It's a shame Matthew's wife turned our legacy into a tourist trap." The crowd hushed, heads turning. Sarah's face burned, but she kept pouring cider, her hands steady. Matthew squeezed her arm, whispering, "Ignore her." Greg, standing nearby, smirked, adding, "Some people don't know their place." The words stung, but Sarah focused on the customers, her smile tight. Life settled into a rhythm, despite the family friction. The farm thrived, hosting weddings in the summer, harvest festivals in the fall. Local farmers like Linda Morgan from the neighboring orchard became allies, swapping tips and tools. Sarah and Matthew dreamed of expanding. Maybe a vineyard, maybe a teaching garden. But then Matthew started clutching his chest after long days in the fields. Sarah chalked it up to stress. The farm's growth, a new loan for the greenhouse. She pushed him to see a doctor, expecting a lecture on rest. Instead, the diagnosis hit like a freight train, a heart condition manageable with medication and care. 2 weeks later, Matthew was checking irrigation lines at dusk, the sky bruised with clouds. He staggered, fell, and didn't get up. Sarah found him, her screams echoing across the fields. The ambulance ride was a blur, her hand gripping his, begging him to hold on. At the hospital, Dottie and Harold arrived, their faces stone, treating Sarah like an acquaintance, not a wife. Greg hovered in the hall, whispering to Dottie while Nancy stared at the floor. Matthew lingered for a day, unconscious, the beep of machines deafening. Then he was gone, the silence heavier than Sarah could bear. She felt hollow, the farm their last tether to him. The funeral packed the local church. Neighbors, farmers, Dottie's church group filling the pews. Sarah moved through it like a ghost, numb, barely registering Dottie and Greg's hushed talks in corners, Harold's averted eyes. Linda Morgan squeezed Sarah's hand, whispering, "You're not alone." But Sarah felt alone, the weight of Matthew's absence crushing her. She planned to return to the farm, needing its quiet, the orchards they'd planted together. 3 days after the funeral, she drove up the familiar dirt road, the oak tree looming in the distance. Her stomach sank as she saw the gate. A new padlock glinted in the sun, her key useless, the farm sealed off from her. Sarah stared at the new padlock on the farm's gate, her key useless in her hand. The Virginia sun beat down, but a chill ran through her. She'd driven up expecting solace in the fields she and Matthew had nurtured, not this. A barred gate, her home stolen 3 days after his funeral. Before she could process, the gate creaked open. Dottie stood there, her face, hard eyes glinting with triumph. "You're not welcome here," she said, her voice like gravel. "This farm belongs to the Bennetts now, not some outsider who latched onto my son." Sarah's throat tightened, her grief raw. "This is my home," she managed, clutching her keys. "Matthew and I built this together." Dottie stepped closer, her smirk cutting deeper than her words from 3 days ago. "You built nothing," she spat. "You spent his money-played wife. Now he's gone and you're done." Behind her, Greg appeared, arms crossed, a stack of Matthew's farm ledgers under his arm. Nancy hovered nearby, avoiding Sarah's eyes, holding a box labeled Bennett Property. The betrayal hit Sarah like a punch. "What are you doing with his things?" she asked, her voice shaking. Greg shrugged, his sneer matching Dottie's. "Taking back what's ours. You don't get to profit off our family?" Sarah noticed a pickup truck parked inside, loaded with farm equipment, irrigation pumps, tools she and Matthew had bought together. Her stomach churned. They weren't just locking her out, they were stripping the farm bare. Dottie pointed to a suitcase by the gate, half-packed with Sarah's clothes. "Take that and go," she said. "1 hour, or I call the sheriff for trespassing." Sarah's eyes stung, but she swallowed hard, refusing to cry. She stepped towards the suitcase, but Dottie blocked her. "Don't touch anything else. It's all Bennett property now." Nancy shifted uncomfortably, muttering, "Let's just get this over with." Sarah caught a glimpse of Patrick Matthews' cousin inside the main house, rifling through file cabinets. His presence stung. He'd never cared about the farm, only showing up to borrow money. Sarah grabbed the suitcase, her hands trembling. She opened it, finding a few shirts, jeans, and a photo of her and Matthew at the farm's first harvest festival. Her wedding album was missing, along with her design sketches, laptop, everything that proved her stake in the farm. "Where's my work?" she demanded. Dottie waved a hand dismissively. "Family history stays with family." "You're not that." Greg snorted, tossing a ledger into the truck. "Face it, you were just along for the ride." The humiliation burned. Sarah's neighbor, Linda Morgan, slowed her car on the road, watching the scene unfold. Sarah's cheeks flushed. The whole town would hear about this soon. She wanted to scream, to fight, but Dottie's threat of the sheriff loomed. She zipped the suitcase, her fingers brushing a small velvet box inside. It held the necklace Matthew had given her on their last anniversary, a simple silver chain with a tree pendant. She clutched it, the only piece of him she could keep. As Sarah turned to leave, Dottie called after her, "Don't come back or you'll regret it." The gate slammed shut, the padlock snapping into place. Sarah stood frozen, the suitcase heavy in her hand, the farm, her home, her life, locked away. She drove to a nearby gas station, parked, and broke down sobbing until her chest ached. The necklace dangled from her fingers, its weight grounding her. She had nothing left. No home, no money beyond a few $100s in her account, no proof of the life she'd built. That night, Sarah slept in her car in a strip mall lot, the suitcase her only possession. The darkness pressed in her grief, tangled with rage. She couldn't access the farm's bank account. Dottie had already frozen it, claiming it was Matthew's alone. By morning, exhaustion gave way to desperation. She called Emily Parker, her best friend since college, who ran a bakery in town. Emily's voice was sharp with worry. "Where are you? I'm coming now." 30 minutes later, Emily pulled up, took one look at Sarah's tear-streaked face, and hugged her tightly. "You're staying with me," she said, loading the suitcase into her trunk. "We'll figure this out." Emily's one-bedroom apartment became Sarah's refuge, her couch a makeshift bed. Over coffee, Sarah recounted the confrontation, Dottie's words echoing in her mind. Emily's eyes narrowed. "They can't just take everything. You're on the deed, right?" Sarah nodded, but her heart sank. The deed, her receipts, all her proof was locked in the farm's safe. Emily slammed her mug down. "We're getting a lawyer. This isn't over." Later that day, Sarah drove past the farm, hoping to spot a way in. Greg's truck was there, and a man in a suit stood by the gate holding a clipboard. Sarah's pulse quickened. A real estate agent. Dottie was already moving to sell the farm. She parked down the road, watching Patrick carry boxes to the truck, his face grim. He'd always been a drifter, but seeing him help Dottie felt like a knife twist. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from a local farmer. "Heard Dottie's telling everyone you bankrupted the farm." The lie spread fast. At the market, the gas station, Dottie's church group whispered that Sarah was a schemer who'd bled Matthew dry. The gossip cut deep. Sarah's design clients canceled meetings, citing personal reasons. Her boss at the landscaping firm, wary of the rumors, suggested a leave of absence. "Just until things settle," he said, but Sarah saw the doubt in his eyes. She felt erased her life with Matthew, rewritten as a con. That evening, scrolling through social media, she found a post from Nancy, a photo of Dottie in the farm's kitchen serving pie on Sarah's plates, captioned, "Reclaiming our family legacy." The comments piled up. Good riddance to that woman. Matthew deserved better. Sarah's hands shook as she closed the app. Sleep didn't come. Sarah sat on Emily's couch, the necklace in her palm. She traced the tree pendant, remembering Matthew's smile when he gave it to her. "It's us," he'd said, rooted together. The memory stirred something. He'd been insistent she keep it close even during his last days. She turned the pendant over, noticing a tiny scratch. Her heart skipped. Was it a mark, a clue? Could Matthew have left her something to fight back with? Sarah sat on Emily's couch, the silver necklace in her palm, its tree pendant catching the dim light. The scratch, she'd noticed, wasn't random. A faint sequence of numbers etched into the metal, 10-25-17. Her breath caught. Matthew had given her the necklace on their last anniversary, his voice oddly insistent. "Keep this safe," he'd said days before he collapsed. Could this be his way of protecting her even now? The numbers didn't match their anniversary, or any date she recalled, but Matthew was deliberate. Every plan, every seed planted with care. She grabbed a notepad, sketching the pendant, her hands unsteady. Emily peered over, her bakery shift done. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to the numbers. Sarah explained the necklace, the scratch, her gut feeling it meant something. Emily's eyes widened. "Sounds like Matthew left you a trail, maybe a safe deposit box." Sarah nodded, the idea taking root. She remembered Matthew mentioning a bank in town where he kept farm records. The numbers could be a box number, a code, something to anchor her against Dottie's lies. The next morning, Sarah drove to First Virginia Bank, the necklace tucked in her pocket. The lobby was quiet, a single teller sorting papers. "I need to check a safe deposit box," Sarah said, her voice low. "Might be under Matthew Bennett or Sarah Bennett." "Number 1, 02517. The teller, an older woman with kind eyes, tapped her keyboard. "Box 102517 is under Matthew J. Bennett," she confirmed. "You're listed as authorized access, Sarah. I'll need ID." Sarah's heart raced as she handed over her license relief, mixing with dread. In a small vault room, The teller slid out a metal box. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it with the bank's key and her own. The necklace's numbers were the clue, but Matthew's foresight was the lock. Inside was a fireproof folder and a USB drive labeled "For Sarah." She opened the folder first, her breath catching. The farm's deed listed her and Matthew as joint tenants with right of survivorship. Clear proof she owned the farm. Bank statements showed her contributions $30,000 for the down payment, $25,000 for renovations, all from her design earnings. A life insurance policy named her sole beneficiary, worth $200,000. Every document was a shield against Dottie's claims. Sarah plugged the USB into Emily's laptop that evening, her fingers trembling. A video loaded Matthew's face, filling the screen, recorded in their farm office. "This is Matthew Bennett, March 10th, 2024. He began, his voice steady. "If you're watching, Sarah, something's happened to me. I'm making this to protect you." He detailed their partnership, her money, her designs, their shared dream. "My mother, Dottie, never accepted you," he said, his jaw tight. "She's tried to control me, push you out. Don't let her take what's yours. The farm our accounts, my insurance, it's all yours by right." The video ran 20 minutes, referencing every document in the box, leaving no room for doubt. The folder also held a handwritten letter, Matthew's blocky script unmistakable. "Sarah," it read, "I wanted to update my will, but my heart's acting up. If Dottie tries to cut you out, use this. You're my partner always." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. He'd known Dottie's nature planned for this betrayal. The USB had more emails to their lawyer about a new will never finalized, receipts matching her contributions, even notes on Dottie's past attempts to sell the farm behind Matthew's back, including a rejected offer from a developer 2 years ago. Sarah's hope surged, but Dottie's campaign was relentless. At the town market, whispers followed Sarah. She drove Matthew to his grave, stole the Bennett legacy. Dottie had spread her lies far, her church group amplifying them. Sarah's last design client canceled, citing reputation concerns. Her bank account, now unfrozen, held only $800 after Dottie's meddling. Emily fumed, urging Sarah to fight. "Those documents are gold," she said. "You need a lawyer who will bury Dottie." Through a friend, Sarah found William Carter, a local attorney known for estate disputes. She met him at his cluttered office, the safe deposit box contents spread across his desk. Will's eyes lit up as he reviewed the deed statements and video. "This is airtight," he said, leaning back. "Joint tenancy means the farm's yours, no question. Dottie's actions, changing locks, removing property, could be criminal. We'll file for an injunction to stop any sales and a restraining order to keep them off the farm." Sarah exhaled, the weight lifting slightly. But Will warned her Dottie's got influence. Expect pushback, maybe more lies. Sarah nodded, steeling herself. She'd lost too much to stop now. Will worked fast, drafting filings, but Sarah's life unraveled further. At the grocery store, a woman from Dottie's church glared, muttering, "Shame on you, taking from a grieving mother." Sarah's cheeks burned, but she kept walking her cart half empty. She couldn't afford more. Social media was worse. Nancy posted another photo, this time of Dottie and Greg sorting Matthew's farm tools, captioned, "Honoring our family's roots." A comment from Patrick read, "Glad the farm's back where it belongs." Sarah's stomach twisted. Patrick, who'd never lifted a finger for the farm, was now Dottie's ally. Sarah drove by the farm again, unable to stay away. A "For Sale" sign stood by the gate, a real estate logo gleaming. Her blood ran cold. Dottie wasn't just locking her out, she was selling the farm out from under her. Sarah parked, spotting Greg talking to the same suited man from before, gesturing at the orchards. She snapped photos with her phone, her hands shaking. Greg noticed her, his face darkening. "Keep driving," he shouted, waving her off. Sarah sped away, her heart pounding. They were moving fast, betting she couldn't stop them. Back at Emily's, Sarah showed Will the photos. "They're selling the land already," she said, her voice tight. Will's jaw clenched. That's a bold move and illegal with you on the deed. We'll add this to the filing. Sarah stared at the necklace on the coffee table, its pendant glinting. Matthew had given her the tools to fight, but Dottie's lies were strangling her. The town saw her as a villain, her clients gone, her savings dwindling. Yet the documents, the video, Matthew's letter, they were her lifeline. She clung to them, knowing the fight was just beginning. Sarah sat in Will Carter's office, the photos of Greg and the real estate agent spread across the desk. Proof the Bennetts were trying to sell the farm, despite her name on the deed. Her hands gripped the chair, the weight of weeks spent on Emily's couch pressing down. Will's voice cut through her haze. "We're filing tomorrow," he said, stacking the safe deposit box documents, the deed, bank statements, Matthew's video, his letter. "The injunction will freeze any sale. The restraining order keeps Dottie and her crew off the farm. With this evidence, they don't stand a chance." Sarah nodded, her jaw tight. The fight was on, but Dottie's lies still choked the town. She was a gold digger, a fraud, a woman who'd ruined Matthew. Will spent days preparing, gathering affidavits from those who knew Sarah's role in the farm. Linda Morgan, the neighbor who'd seen Dottie's confrontation at the gate, signed a statement describing Sarah's eviction. "It was cruel," Linda wrote, locking her out like a thief. Jim Foster, Matthew's business partner in the farm's produce market, confirmed Sarah's contributions. $30,000 for the down payment, countless hours designing the retreat. Matthew always said she was the farm's heart, Jim told Will. Even the local greenhouse supplier who'd worked with Sarah on herb gardens vouched for her payments from personal funds. Will built a fortress of evidence, but Sarah's life outside the case was crumbling. Dottie's rumors had spread like wildfire. At the post office, a clerk handed Sarah her mail with a scowl, muttering, "Thought you'd left town." Her design firm put her on indefinite leave, unable to handle the gossip. Sarah's savings dwindled to $400, her car's gas tank near empty. Emily covered groceries, but Sarah felt like a burden, her pride bruised. Social media stung worse. Nancy's posts showed Dottie hosting family gatherings at the farm, using Sarah's dishes, her furniture, as if she'd never existed. A new post from Patrick boasted about restoring Bennett land, with photos of him and Greg hauling Matthew's tools. Sarah's chest ached. Those tools had built the farm's greenhouse, her hands guiding Matthew's. The courthouse loomed on the hearing day, a gray brick building in downtown Virginia. Sarah arrived early, her stomach knotted, Emily by her side. Will reviewed their strategy, present the deed, play Matthew's video call witnesses. "Stay calm," he said, adjusting his tie. "Judge Susan Reynolds is fair but tough." Inside, Dottie sat in the front row, her face rigid, flanked by Harold, Greg, and Nancy. Patrick slouched beside them, avoiding Sarah's gaze. Their lawyer, a slick man named Edward Klein, whispered to Dottie, his confidence palpable. Sarah's heart pounded. Dottie's influence ran deep, her church group filling half the gallery. Judge Reynolds entered, her expression unreadable. She reviewed the filings, then fixed her gaze on Klein. "Mr. Klein, your clients claim ownership of the Bennett farm despite a joint tenancy deed. Explain." Klein stood, his voice smooth. "Your Honor, my clients believe Matthew Bennett intended the farm for his family as shown in an earlier will from 2015, before his marriage. Sarah Bennett exerted undue influence, adding her name to the deed." Sarah's hands clenched. The will was a decade old, irrelevant. Will rose, calm but sharp. "Your Honor, we have clear evidence of joint ownership and Matthew's explicit wishes recorded months before his death." Will presented the deed. First, its text unambiguous: Sarah and Matthew joint tenants, with right of survivorship. He followed with bank statements showing Sarah's $30,000 down payment and $25,000 in renovations. The gallery murmured, Dottie's face tightening. Then Will played Matthew's video. His voice filled the courtroom, steady and clear. "My mother. Dottie never accepted Sarah," he said, staring into the camera. "She's tried to control our farm, our marriage. The farm is Sarah's. Legally, morally, always. Dottie gasped, her hand clutching Harold's arm. Greg shifted his eyes, darting to Klein, who scribbled notes furiously. Sarah watched the gallery, seeing Linda Morgan nod Jim Foster's jaw set. Dottie's church group whispered, their certainty wavering. Will called Linda to testify, her voice firm. I saw Dottie lock Sarah out, call her a gold digger. It was heartless. Jim followed, detailing Sarah's work. She paid for half the market stalls herself, $10,000 from her designs. Klein tried to counter, questioning Jim's memory, but Jim didn't flinch. I've got receipts, he said, drawing a chuckle from the gallery. The turning point came when Will called an unexpected witness, Patrick Bennett. Sarah's eyes widened. She hadn't known. Patrick took the stand, his face pale, hands fidgeting. I was wrong to help Dottie, he said, his voice low. She offered me $5,000 to back her story, said Sarah was stealing the farm. I saw her take Sarah's things, sketches, laptop, even her wedding album. The courtroom buzzed, Dottie's face draining of color. Klein objected, but Judge Reynolds waved him off. Continue, Mr. Bennett. Patrick glanced at Sarah, guilt in his eyes. Dottie planned to sell the farm before Matthew died. She met developers in secret. Dottie stood, her voice shrill. He's lying. That boy's always been trouble. The gallery gasped, Judge Reynolds banging her gavel. Mrs. Bennett, sit down or you'll be removed. Dottie sank back, her composure shattered. Sarah's heart raced. Patrick's betrayal had stung, but his testimony was a crack in Dottie's armor. Will presented emails from Dottie to a developer uncovered through Patrick's tip, discussing a sale as early as January 2024. The evidence piled up, each document a blow to Dottie's narrative. Klein's defense faltered. He argued Matthew's video showed emotional distress, not intent, but Judge Reynolds cut him off. The video is clear, Mr. Klein. So is the deed. After 2 hours, she delivered her ruling. Based on the evidence, Sarah Bennett is the sole owner of the Bennett farm as surviving joint tenant. I'm granting the injunction to halt any sale and a restraining order barring the Bennett family from the property. She turned to Dottie, her voice stern. Mrs. Bennett, your actions, evicting a widow, removing property, are indefensible. This court will not tolerate self-help tactics. The gallery erupted, Dottie's church group silent, Linda clapping softly. Sarah's eyes stung, relief flooding her. Emily squeezed her hand, whispering, You did it. But Will leaned in, his voice low. This isn't over. They've taken property. We'll need an inventory. Sarah nodded, her mind spinning. The farm was hers, but what had Dottie destroyed? That afternoon, a sheriff escorted Sarah to the farm, a locksmith trailing behind. The gate opened with a new key, the padlock gone. Sarah stepped onto the dirt path, her chest tight. The farm felt alien. Dottie's touch was everywhere. The guest cabins had new curtains, garish and cheap, replacing Sarah's designs. The greenhouse shelves were bare, her herbs gone. In the main house, family photos lined the walls. All Bennetts, none of Sarah or Matthew together. The kitchen reeked of Dottie's perfume, her mugs in the sink. Sarah's design sketches, her laptop, her wedding album, all missing. An inventory specialist hired by Will photographed the changes, noting $30,000 in removed property. Sarah found Dottie's clothes in the master bedroom, her toiletries crowding the bathroom sink. The violation hit hard. Dottie hadn't just taken the farm. She'd tried to erase Sarah's life. In the office, Greg's handwriting scrawled on a notepad. Developer offer $250,000. Sarah's blood boiled. They'd planned to sell her home, her legacy, for a quick profit. The specialist documented it all, his voice grim. This is theft, plain and simple. Sarah stood in the orchard, the trees she and Matthew had planted swaying in the breeze, and felt Matthew's absence sharper than ever. The fight wasn't done. Dottie's damage lingered, a wound to heal. Sarah stood in the Bennett farm's orchard, the Virginia breeze rustling the apple trees she and Matthew had planted 6 years ago. The farm was hers again. The court had ruled the restraining order kept Dottie out. But the scars of Dottie's occupation lingered. The guest cabins bore tacky curtains, the greenhouse stood empty, and the main house felt like a stranger's. Sarah's wedding album design sketches and laptop were still missing, valued at $30,000 by the inventory specialist. Dottie's perfume clung to the kitchen, her mugs cluttering the sink. Sarah's chest tightened. This wasn't just theft. It was erasure. Emily arrived the next day, toolbox in hand, her bakery van packed with supplies. "We're fixing this," she said, her voice firm. Linda Morgan, the neighbor who'd witnessed Sarah's eviction, showed up with her husband carrying paint cans. Jim Foster Matthews' business partner brought a crew from the produce market, armed with shovels and seedlings. The community poured in. Farmers, fair vendors, even the greenhouse supplier who'd vouched for Sarah's payments. They'd heard about the court case, read the local paper's expose on Dottie's lies. "You're one of us?" Linda said, handing Sarah a brush. "This farm's yours." The restoration began slow but steady. Sarah and Emily repainted the cabins, stripping Dottie's garish curtains for the soft linens Sarah had chosen years ago. Jim's crew replanted the greenhouse herbs sprouting where Dottie had left barren shelves. Linda's husband repaired scratched floors, sanding away the marks of moved furniture. Sarah walked through the main house, removing Dottie's family photos, replacing them with pictures of her and Matthew. Their wedding, the farm's first harvest, a trip to the Blue Ridge Mountains. Each frame reclaimed a piece of her life. The court-ordered property return brought a tense confrontation. A special master appointed to oversee the process arrived with a truck of items Dottie had taken. Sarah watched from the porch as movers unloaded boxes, her laptop, some sketches, a few tools. Dottie stood nearby her face, stony, clutching a small crate. "These are Matthew's things," she said, her voice flat, handing it over. Inside were his old journals, a watch Sarah had given him, and a single photo of their wedding. Sarah's throat caught. It was something, but not enough. The special master noted missing items, estimating $20,000 in unrecovered property. Dottie turned away, her shoulders stiff. No apology offered. Days later, Nancy contacted Sarah asking to meet at a diner in town. Sarah hesitated, but agreed, curious. Nancy sat across from her, eyes red, twisting a napkin. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "Dottie pushed us, said you'd ruin the family. I didn't know about Matthew's video, his plans." She slid an envelope across the table containing Sarah's wedding album, its pages creased but intact. "I hid it from Dottie," Nancy admitted. "I couldn't let her destroy it." Sarah's fingers traced the album, gratitude mixing with pain. Nancy's marriage to Greg was crumbling. She confessed her guilt over the farm, too heavy. "We crossed lines," she said, leaving Sarah with the album and a fragile hope for redemption. Sarah's professional life began to mend. Her design firm welcomed her back, clients returning as Dottie's lies faded. The local paper ran a feature on the farm's revival, praising Sarah's resilience. She took on new projects, specializing in sustainable farms, her ordeal shaping her work. The life insurance payout, $200,000, came through, easing her financial strain. Sarah set aside most of it, determined to honor Matthew's vision. She established the Matthew Bennett Scholarship for Sustainable Agriculture at a nearby college, funding students to study farming and preservation. The first recipient, a young woman with dreams of organic orchards, thanked Sarah at a small ceremony, her words echoing Matthew's passion. The farm itself transformed. Sarah opened the community market year-round, its stalls bustling with vendors. She added a teaching garden using Matthew's old sketches, where locals learned to grow herbs and vegetables. The guest cabins booked solid families drawn to the farm's story, a place rebuilt from loss. Linda organized a harvest festival, the orchard glowing with lanterns, kids running through the fields. Sarah stood by the oak tree, where she and Matthew had married, watching the crowd, her heart full. The farm wasn't just hers. It was theirs, a living testament to their dream. Not all wounds healed. Dottie stayed away, her influence in town diminished. Harold sent a brief letter expressing regret. "I should have stood up to her," he wrote, but offered no more. Greg avoided Sarah, his trucking business faltering without Dottie's support. Patrick disappeared, his testimony a fleeting act of conscience. Sarah didn't dwell on them. Her family was here in Emily's laughter, Linda's steady presence, Jim's quiet support. They'd shown up when blood ties failed, proving family was built on love, not lineage. Sarah's parents, visiting from their new home in Florida, walked the farm with her, marveling at its revival. Matthew would be proud, her father said, pausing by the greenhouse. "You've kept him alive here." Her mother hugged her, whispering, "You're stronger than you know." Their words settled deep, grounding Sarah. She'd faced eviction, lies, erasure, yet found strength she hadn't known she had. On the first anniversary of Matthew's death, Sarah stood in the farm's garden, the teaching plot blooming with mint and basil. She held one of Matthew's journals, its pages filled with notes on soil and seasons. The grief was still there, sharp, familiar, but softer now, woven into her life. She read a passage aloud, his words blending with the wind, a conversation across time. The farm breathed around her, its roots deep like the necklace she still wore, its tree pendant, a reminder of their bond. Sarah's journey had reshaped her. The woman who'd slept in her car, humiliated by Dottie's sneers, had forged a new path. She'd reclaimed her home, her work, her place in the community. The scholarship grew, supporting more students, carrying Matthew's legacy forward. Sarah hired a farm manager, freeing her to design again her sketches, now infused with the farm's spirit. She joined a local grief group, sharing her story, helping others navigate loss. Her voice, once silenced by Dottie's lies, now carried weight. One spring morning, Sarah met Emily at the market, the stalls alive with color. Emily handed her a coffee, grinning. "You've turned this place into something bigger than Dottie could imagine." Sarah smiled, her eyes on the orchard. She thought of Matthew, his hands in the dirt, his dreams in every tree. The farm was their story, but it was hers now, too. A story of loss, fight, and renewal. She walked to the garden, the sun warm, and sat by the mint, knowing she'd carry Matthew forward, rooted in the land they'd loved.